Shalom Uvracha. Every human society is comprised of what we call social institutions. The largest of them is the state. The state brings together, unites together citizens that each one is completely different from the other. Groups of people, sometimes even religions, that don't have anything in common, it seems, with each other. Comes the state and says, yes, you have a common identity. You have a common definition. You all belong to one state with a certain calling, with a certain definition that the state gives you. There are many smaller social institutions, cities, communities, even clubs, synagogues. All of these give us an identity that goes beyond our individual identity and gives us meaning that somehow transcends, that somehow goes beyond our meaning as individuals. The most basic social institution, the one which provides the building blocks for all the others, is the institution of the family. In the family, through the basic connections between family members of love, of empathy, of care, of fidelity, through all of those connections, a person learns that he is more than being an individual. He is on the one hand himself, a single individual, but on the other hand he belongs to something bigger than himself. And that bigger something gives him his first social identity. He is a member of the family. That family introduces him to the world of bigger social institutions, whether it's your club, whether it's your shul, or whether it's the whole state. It starts with a family. Sefer Bereishis, the first Sefer in the Torah, is a book of families. It's a book about how do we build, how do we crystallize the family of Klal Yisrael. It starts with Avraham Avinu, and it doesn't work out. Yitzchak carries on the legacy, while Ishmael is cast aside and does something else. The same is true of Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov continues on, while Esav goes astray, does something else. Only with Yaakov Avinu do we find mitasei shlema. All of his sons are with him. His family is complete. There was a danger that it would be incomplete. The family almost splintered apart when the brothers wanted to kill Yosef, and then in the end they sold him into slavery, and it was in danger of splintering. But ultimately, through the efforts of Yosef and Yaakov, Yosef and Yehuda and Yaakov Avinu himself, the family remained whole, complete, and all of the 12 brothers are present, united at the deathbed of Yaakov Avinu. Says Yaakov Avinu, right now we're going to move on to the next phase. We've completed the family phase, that's Bereishis. Now we're going to move on to stage 2, to the stage of nation building. We're going to go from being a family to becoming a nation. And that's why he says the words, Yikavtzu v'shimu b'nei Yaakov, v'shimu el Yisrael avichem. Why Yaakov and Israel? We begin with Yaakov, we finish with Israel. Yaakov is the private identity of Klal Yisrael, the family identity, the mishpacha, the family of Yaakov Avinu. From here we're moving on. We're going to become a nation. And that nation is not Am Yaakov, it's Am Yisrael. We're moving from Bnei Yaakov to Yisrael Avichem, from a family to a nation. Says Yaakov Avinu, as we move on from a family to a nation, you need to retain your individual identities. And that's what the brachas are all about. By contrast with Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe actually gives brachas, he gives blessings. In many of the tribes, he mentions the word bracha, blessing. Yaakov Avinu isn't giving out blessings, he's giving out definitions. He tells them, what are you? What do you define? Who are you? What's your identity? Says Yaakov to his sons, even as you become a nation, even as you shed your individual family identity and you take on a national identity, don't forget what each one of you represents, because each one of you has a special mission, a special calling within the nation. The nation is one unified body, but it's a mosaic. It's comprised of many different colors, of many different hues, and only because it's comprised of different colors and hues and callings and self-definitions can it be a truly great nation. A nation that would be monotonic, that would be homogeneous, would not be able to complete its mission. In order to complete that mission, it has to be heterogeneous. It has to retain the diversity that each one of you brings. Reuven, Shimon and Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, and so on. Each one of you has an individual calling within the nation. And the truth of the matter is that each greater social institution, whether it's a state, whether it's a city, whether it's a community, is always built of that basic social institution called the fabric, the building called the family. The family remains the basic unit from which all other social identities are built. Says Yaakov Avinu, don't forget the family. Yes, we're moving on to becoming a nation, but nonetheless, remember that each one of you has an individual calling within that nation. And as we continue, Yaakov Avinu says this is the way to get to Achreis Hayomim, to get to the final destiny. As we continue to move towards that family destiny, let us all remember, on the one hand, our strength is our unity. We travel unified. We move on step by step towards the final destiny because we're unified, because we appreciate that we have a unifying calling, a mission that encompasses all of us together. But on the other hand, let us not forget that each one of us, each family, each group, each part of Klal Yisrael, with its different customs and with its different idiosyncrasies, each one of them represents something individual, something special within that journey. And only by representing all of those different parts can we actually travel together, united, to reach the final destiny of Klal Yisrael. Sefer Bereishis comes before Sefer Shemos. We have to live not only the Sefer Shemos of the unified nation, but even the Sefer Bereishis of the individual families, the individual units, and the individual calling.